The catering van pulled up to Barrett Industries at exactly 11:30, just like it had every weekday for the past 8 months, and Tessa Foster checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before grabbing the insulated delivery bags from the back. She had no idea that today would be the day everything changed, the day her carefully constructed routine would collide with a truth she never expected anyone to notice. The lobby of Barrett Industries always smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. Tessa navigated through the marble-floored entrance with practiced ease, nodding at the security guard who waved her through without checking her ID anymore. She was as much a fixture here as the abstract sculpture in the corner or the receptionist who changed every few months. The elevator ride to the 15th floor gave her exactly 90 seconds to mentally review her afternoon schedule. After this delivery, she had 3 more corporate lunches to handle, then prep work for tomorrow's orders, then accounting if she had any energy left. Running Comfort Kitchen, her small catering company, meant wearing every hat imaginable. Chef, delivery driver, bookkeeper, marketing department. Some days she wondered if she was insane for turning down that stable sous chef position at the garden room 2 years ago. But then she remembered why she started this in the first place. Freedom, control, the ability to pour her heart into food that made people happy, not food designed to impress critics or photograph well for Instagram. The 15th floor reception area was empty when she arrived. Tessa set the bags down on the counter and pulled out the lunch order. Executive lunch for 12. It was the same order she had been fulfilling since last June, though she had never actually met the person who requested it. Everything went through Sarah, the executive assistant who had first contacted Comfort Kitchen through their website. The order was specific but not fussy. A rotation of homemade soups, artisan sandwiches, fresh salads, and her signature lemon bars for dessert. Real food, the kind that required actual cooking, not assembly. "You can take it straight back today," Sarah said, appearing from around the corner with her arms full of file folders. "Conference room B. They are setting up for the quarterly review." Tessa hesitated. Usually she left everything at reception. "Are you sure? I can wait. Please, I have got my hands full. Just knock and go in. They will be happy to see you." Sarah's phone started ringing from her desk. "Really, it is fine." So Tessa picked up the bags and walked down the hallway, her sneakers silent on the plush carpet. Barrett Industries specialized in commercial real estate development, transforming abandoned properties into mixed-use spaces that revitalized neighborhoods. She had looked them up once, curious about who was ordering her food every day. The company had a solid reputation, and their projects actually seemed to benefit communities rather than just displacing them. Conference Room B had frosted glass doors. Through them, she could see silhouettes moving around. Tessa knocked twice and pushed the door open. 12 faces turned toward her, but only one made her breath catch. The man at the head of the table was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he had been running his hands through it all morning. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and when his eyes met hers, something sparked in them. Recognition, maybe, though that made no sense. Tessa had never seen him before. She would have remembered. "Lunch delivery," she managed, holding up the bags like evidence. "Perfect timing," one of the women at the table said. "We are all starving." Tessa moved into the room and started unpacking on the sideboard. She could feel eyes on her as she worked, setting out the containers, arranging the sandwiches and salads, making sure everything looked presentable. This was supposed to be a quick drop-off, but her hands were shaking slightly and she could not figure out why. "Wait," the man at the head of the table said. His voice was deep, certain, the kind of voice that made people listen. You are from Comfort Kitchen. That is right. Tessa glanced at him, then back at the food. Everything should still be hot. The soup is butternut squash today, and the sandwiches are turkey and brie on sourdough or Caterer on focaccia. There are also Caesar salads and lemon bars. He stood up, and suddenly the room felt smaller. You make the food yourself? Yes. She finished arranging the plates and turned to face him properly. I do all the cooking. It is a small operation. The man walked closer, and Tessa noticed details she had missed from across the room. His eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds. He had a small scar above his left eyebrow. His hands were clasped behind his back like he was physically restraining himself from something. 8 months, he said quietly. You have been making our lunch for 8 months. About that, yes. Tessa picked up the empty bags. Sarah handles all the orders, so I have never actually met you before, Mr. Beckett, Sebastian Beckett. He extended his hand, and when she shook it, his grip was warm and firm. I own Barrett Industries. Oh, Tessa felt heat creep up her neck. She had been delivering lunch to the CEO himself and had no idea. It is nice to meet you officially. The lemon bars, Sebastian said, and there was something almost urgent in his tone. You add cardamom to them, just a hint. Tessa blinked. You notice that? I notice everything about your food. He seemed to realize how intense that sounded and took a step back. What I mean is, it is exceptional. Every single day. The soup last Tuesday, the mushroom and thyme, I have been thinking about it all week. One of the other executives cleared their throat. Sebastian, should we maybe eat and then discuss the catering? But Sebastian was not looking away from Tessa. Do you deliver to all your clients personally? Most of them, yes. I have 2 part-time assistants who help with the cooking, but I handle the majority of deliveries. She did not mention that she could not afford to hire a dedicated driver, or that most nights she fell into bed exhausted, smelling like garlic and rosemary. That is a lot of work for one person. I do not mind. I like knowing the food gets there the way it is supposed to. Tessa shifted the bags in her arms. I should probably let you all eat before it gets cold. Have lunch with us, Sebastian said suddenly. The room went quiet. Tessa stared at him. What? Have lunch with us? You should see people enjoy what you make, and I have questions about the menu. Feedback, ideas. He was improvising, she could tell, but there was genuine hope in his expression. I have 3 more deliveries this afternoon. 30 minutes, please. It was the please that did it. Not commanding, not entitled, just sincere. Tessa checked her watch and calculated drive times. If she ate quickly, she could still make her next stop on time. 30 minutes, she agreed. Sebastian smiled, and it transformed his entire face. He pulled out the chair next to his at the head of the table. Everyone, this is Tessa Foster from Comfort Kitchen. Tessa, this is my team. Ignore anything inappropriate they might say and know that they have all been in love with your cooking since June. The introductions became a blur of names and faces. Jennifer, the CFO. Marcus, head of acquisitions. Paula, development coordinator. They all seemed genuinely pleased to meet her, complimenting dishes they had particularly enjoyed over the months. Tessa sat down feeling overwhelmed and oddly touched. She had always thought of these corporate lunches as anonymous transactions. It had never occurred to her that people actually paid attention, that they remembered specific meals. Sebastian served her first, which felt backward. She was supposed to be the one providing service. But he loaded a plate with one of each sandwich, a generous portion of salad and a bowl of soup, setting it in front of her with an attentiveness that made her hyper-aware of his presence. So how did you end up starting a catering company? He asked, settling into his own chair with his food. Tessa swallowed a bite of soup. It was good, she noted with relief. The seasoning was right. I worked in restaurants for about 6 years after culinary school. Fine dining, mostly. It was great experience, but creatively limiting. Every dish had to fit a specific aesthetic, a specific price point. I wanted to make food that comforted people, not food that intimidated them. Comfort Kitchen, Marcus said. The name makes sense. Exactly. I wanted to bring back the feeling of a home-cooked meal but with professional quality, something that nourishes body and soul, you know. She paused, feeling self-conscious. That probably sounds cheesy. It sounds perfect, Sebastian said firmly. That is exactly what your food does. There is this soup you made a few months ago, white bean and rosemary. I had it on a day when everything was falling apart. A deal we had been working on for 18 months collapsed. We lost a major investor, and I was seriously questioning every decision I had made. Then I had that soup, and it was like someone gave me a moment of peace in the middle of the chaos. It was just food, but it mattered. Tessa felt something warm bloom in her chest. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my cooking. I mean every word. They ate and talked, and somehow 30 minutes became 45. The quarterly review was apparently forgotten as the conversation flowed around the table. Tessa learned that Barrett Industries had a project in development that would convert an old textile mill into affordable artist studios and community spaces. Sebastian spoke about it with a passion that surprised her, his whole body animated as he described the plans. Too many developers see these old buildings as just real estate, he explained. But they are community anchors. They have history character. Our job is not to erase that, but to honor it while making the space functional for modern use. That is a beautiful philosophy, Tessa said. Most people just tear things down and build generic condos. I know. It drives me crazy. Sebastian leaned forward, his forearms on the table. This city has so much architectural heritage. If we are not careful, it will all disappear. You really care about this. It is why I started the company. His eyes held hers. I grew up in a neighborhood that got demolished for a highway expansion. Entire blocks of history just gone. Families displaced. Community destroyed. I promised myself that if I ever had the power to do things differently, I would. Tessa understood that kind of driving purpose. It was why she got up at 5 in the morning to make stock from scratch, why she insisted on sourcing ingredients from local farms, even though it complicated her supply chain. Purpose made the hard work worthwhile. Her phone alarm went off, jarring her back to reality. I really do have to go. I am so sorry. Do not apologize. Sebastian stood when she did. Thank you for staying. This was the best lunch meeting we have had in months. Because the boss actually let us eat before diving into spreadsheets, Jennifer said dryly, but she was grinning. Tessa gathered her bags, suddenly reluctant to leave. The room felt warmer than when she had entered, full of laughter and easy conversation. Sebastian walked her to the door. Same order for tomorrow, she asked. Actually, I would like to discuss expanding our arrangement. Do you have time this week to meet? Outside of a lunch delivery, her heart did a small flip. To discuss catering, to start with, yes. His smile was crooked, charming. And maybe I can finally buy you coffee. Seems only fair after 8 months of incredible food. Tessa should have said no. She was barely keeping her head above water as it was, and adding anything to her schedule felt impossible. But something about Sebastian Beckett made her want to say yes. Maybe it was the way he talked about her food like it mattered. Maybe it was the scar above his eyebrow or the gray eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Maybe it was just that she had been so busy surviving that she had forgotten what it felt like to be genuinely interested in someone. Thursday afternoon, she heard herself say. I have a gap between 2 and 4. Perfect. I will text you the details. He paused. I need your number for that. She gave it to him, fingers brushing as he handed her his phone to type it in. The contact felt electric, promising. Tessa left the conference room in a daze, navigating back to the elevator on autopilot. It was not until she was in her van, pulling into midday traffic, that she let herself smile. Sebastian Beckett had been eating her food for 8 months. He noticed the cardamom in her lemon bars. He wanted to have coffee with her, and she definitely wanted to have coffee with him. The rest of the week moved in a strange blur of anticipation and anxiety. Tessa caught herself thinking about Sebastian at odd moments while dicing vegetables or packing orders. She wondered what he did when he was not working, whether he cooked for himself, what his life looked like outside the polished conference rooms of Barrett Industries. Her assistants, Meyer and Derek, noticed her distraction and teased her mercilessly once she finally admitted why she kept checking her phone. "The hot CEO asked you out," Maya said, dramatically clutching her chest. "This is like a romance novel. It is not a date, it is a business meeting." "Sure. Business. Is that why you have tried on 4 different outfits this morning?" Tessa threw a dish towel at her, but Maya was not entirely wrong. When Thursday afternoon arrived, she found herself standing in her apartment bedroom, scrutinizing her reflection with unusual intensity. The black jeans and soft gray sweater were professional enough for a business meeting but flattering enough for something more. She left her hair down, just touching her shoulders, and kept her makeup minimal. Natural, like she had not spent 40 minutes trying to look effortlessly pretty. Sebastian had chosen a small cafe in the arts district, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local artwork on the walls. Tessa arrived 5 minutes early, but he was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He stood when he saw her, and she noticed he was dressed more casually than at the office. Dark jeans, a navy Henley that fit him in a way that should probably be illegal. His hair was slightly damp, like he had showered recently. "I took a guess on your coffee order," he said as she approached. "Cappuccino, 1 sugar, but if I am wrong, I will get you something else." "That is exactly right." Tessa sat down, touched that he had tried. "Thank you. I figured you spend all day taking care of other people. Someone should take care of you occasionally." The words settled over her like a warm blanket. When was the last time someone had said something like that to her? Tessa had been operating in survival mode for so long, she had forgotten what it felt like to be considered. "So," she said, wrapping her hands around the cup. "You wanted to talk about expanding the catering arrangement." Sebastian leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "I do. But first, I need to be honest with you about something. I did not realize, until you walked into that conference room on Monday, that you were the person making our lunch every day. I thought Comfort Kitchen was a bigger operation, maybe a team of chefs. When I saw you, when I realized that one person had been putting that much care and attention into our meals for 8 months, it made me look at everything differently. I am not sure I follow. Your food has been a constant in my life for months. A good constant, something I looked forward to every single day, and I never once thought about the person behind it. That seems wrong now. Important things should not be invisible." Tessa's throat felt tight. Most people do not think about where their food comes from beyond a restaurant name. "I should have thought about it, and now that I know it is you, now that I have met you, I cannot stop thinking about it." He paused, and a hint of vulnerability crossed his face. "I am not explaining this well. I think you are explaining it perfectly." They smiled at each other, and the busy cafe seemed to fade away. Sebastian cleared his throat and pulled a folder from the bag beside his chair. "Right, business first. I have a proposition for you. Barrett Industries is hosting a gala fundraiser in 6 weeks. 200 guests, sit-down dinner. We usually hire one of the big catering companies in the city, but I would rather hire you, if you are interested and have the capacity. Tessa nearly choked on her coffee. 200 people. That is way beyond my normal scope. I know. That is why I am offering to connect you with resources. Rental equipment, temporary staff, whatever you need. The budget is substantial and I want to pay you fairly, more than fairly. He slid a piece of paper across the table with a number written on it. Her eyes went wide. That was 3 months of income, maybe more. Sebastian, this is too much. It is what the job is worth, what your skill is worth. His voice was firm. I have had food from every high-end caterer in this city. Yours is better. You deserve to be compensated accordingly. But I have never done an event this size. What if I screw it up? You would not. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I have faith in you, Tessa, and honestly, I think this could be a turning point for Comfort Kitchen. The gala will have guests from all over the city. Business owners, developers, philanthropists. If they taste your food, you will have more work than you can handle. It was the opportunity she had been dreaming about, the chance to take her business to the next level. But it was also terrifying. What if she failed? What if she took on something too big and it broke her? Can I think about it? She asked quietly. Of course. Take all the time you need. Sebastian's expression softened. I did not mean to pressure you. That was not my intention. I know. I just need to work out the logistics in my head, figure out if it is even possible. Fair enough. He took a sip of his coffee. So, business portion of this meeting concluded. Can we talk about other things now? What other things? Anything. Everything. I want to know about you, Tessa Foster. Beyond the incredible food and the small business owner thing, so she told him. About growing up in a small town upstate, the daughter of a nurse and a high school teacher. About learning to cook at her grandmother's elbow, a woman who believed food was love made tangible. About moving to the city at 22 with a culinary degree and more ambition than sense. The years of working brutal restaurant hours, the failed relationships that could not survive her schedule, the moment 2 years ago when she decided to bet everything on herself. Sebastian listened like every word mattered, asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. And then he shared his own story. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood that no longer existed, putting himself through state college and business school, working for developers who only cared about profit margins until he had enough experience and capital to start Barrett Industries at 30. He was 36 now, and the company was successful enough that he could have coasted, but coasting was not in his nature. I need to build things, he said. Not just buildings, but community, legacy, something that matters beyond a bank account. You are a millionaire who actually cares about people. That is rare, he laughed, but there was no humor in it. Money is a tool. It can be used to create or to destroy. I have seen both. I would rather create. 2 hours passed without Tessa noticing. They talked about books and movies and the neighborhoods they loved in the city. Sebastian had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, making her laugh until her sides hurt. He asked about her favorite dishes to cook, and she asked about his favorite projects. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they had known each other for years instead of days. I should let you get back to work, Sebastian finally said, though he did not sound happy about it. I am sure you have a million things to do, always. But Tessa did not want to leave either. Thank you for the coffee and the opportunity. I really will think about it. No pressure. Whatever you decide, I respect it. He stood and helped her with her jacket, his hands briefly resting on her shoulders. The touch sent warmth cascading through her. Can I see you again, not for business? Just to see you, her heart hammered. I would like that. Saturday night, dinner my treat, and before you protest, I know you cook all day, let someone else cook for you. Tessa laughed. You do not have to tell me twice. Saturday sounds perfect. They exchanged a few more words on the sidewalk outside the cafe, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Finally, Sebastian leaned in and kissed her cheek, his lips warm against her skin. I am really glad you delivered that lunch on Monday, he said softly. Me too. Tessa walked back to her van feeling like she was floating. The city seemed brighter, more vivid. She had spent so long focused on survival, on building her business one meal at a time, that she had forgotten what it felt like to have something to look forward to beyond the next order, the next payment. Sebastian made her remember that she was not just a business owner or a chef. She was a woman and she deserved good things. Romance. Connection. Someone who looked at her the way he did, like she was fascinating and rare. The next 2 days were a chaotic blur of cooking, deliveries, and frantic planning. Tessa kept thinking about the gala offer, running numbers in her head during the rare, quiet moments. It was risky, but it was also the kind of opportunity that could change everything. She called her 2 assistants and laid out the situation. To her relief and gratitude, they were both enthusiastically on board. Are you kidding? This is huge, Derek said, and also you are totally into this guy. It is not about that. Sure, boss, keep telling yourself that, but Derek was right. It was about Sebastian, at least partially. Tessa wanted to impress him, wanted to show him that his faith in her was justified. She wanted to be someone worthy of that steady gray gaze and the crooked smile that made her stomach flip. Saturday night arrived with unseasonable warmth for November. Tessa wore a dark red dress she had bought on impulse years ago and never had occasion to wear. It hit just above her knees and had a neckline that was elegant without being too revealing. She felt pretty in it, confident in a way that had nothing to do with how perfectly she had executed a recipe. Sebastian picked her up at 7, driving a sleek black car that probably cost more than she made in a year. But he did not make a big deal of it, just opened her door and complimented her dress with genuine appreciation in his eyes. You look stunning, he said simply. You clean up pretty well yourself. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood she rarely visited. The kind of place that did not advertise because they did not need to, where regulars were greeted by name and the pasta was made fresh every day. The owner, an older woman named Francesca, hugged Sebastian like family and gave Tessa an appraising look that somehow managed to be both skeptical and approving. So you finally bring a girl to meet me, Francesca said in accented English. She must be special. She is, Sebastian said without hesitation, and Tessa felt her cheeks warm. They were seated at a quiet corner table with a candle flickering between them. The menu was small, focused, exactly the kind of approach Tessa respected. She ordered the wild mushroom risotto, and Sebastian got the osso buco. They shared a bottle of red wine and fell back into the easy conversation that had characterized their coffee date. So tell me the truth, Tessa said after the waiter brought bread and olive oil. Why are you still single? A successful, attractive man who quotes architecture philosophy and cares about community development. That seems like catnip for most women. Sebastian's laugh was rueful. Because I am married to my work. Because most of the women I have dated could not handle the hours I keep or the passion I have for projects that sometimes consume months of my life. Take your pick. That sounds lonely. It has been. His eyes met hers. I did not realize how much until recently. The weight of his words hung between them, full of meaning. Tessa reached across the table and placed her hand over his. I understand that. Building something from nothing requires sacrifice. Sometimes you look up and realize you have been so focused on the goal that you forgot to have a life. Exactly. His fingers intertwined with hers. But maybe it is time to change that for both of us. The food arrived and it was exceptional. Tessa savored each bite, appreciating the skill and care evident in every component. They ate slowly, talking between bites about everything and nothing. Sebastian told her about the textile mill project, how they had hit a snag with historical preservation requirements, but he was determined to work through it. Tessa talked about the weird and wonderful catering requests she had received over the years, from the guy who wanted everything purple to the bride who insisted on a 12-course tasting menu for 30 guests. "Did you do it?" Sebastian asked. "The 12-course meal? Hell no. I recommended someone who specialized in that kind of thing. You have to know your limits." She twirled her fork in the risotto. "Which brings me back to your gala offer." He went still. "You have been thinking about it." "I have not been able to stop thinking about it." Tessa took a breath. "I want to do it. I am terrified, but I want to do it, if the offer still stands." Sebastian's smile could have lit the entire restaurant. "It absolutely stands. Tessa, you are going to be amazing. This is going to be the beginning of something huge for you. I can feel it. I am going to need your help. Resources, like you mentioned. Maybe advice from someone who has planned events this size. Anything you need, just ask. I will connect you with our event coordinator. She has worked on dozens of galas and will be an incredible resource." He squeezed her hand. "I am so proud of you for taking this leap." They lingered over dessert, neither wanting the evening to end. Francesca brought them complimentary tiramisu, and another knowing look that made Sebastian roll his eyes affectionately. When they finally left the restaurant, it was after 10, and the streets had that quiet, magical quality that only certain city nights possess. Sebastian drove her home slowly, taking the long route through neighborhoods glowing with streetlights and the warm windows of occupied apartments. He parked in front of her building, a modest 3-story walk-up, and turned to face her. "I had a really good time tonight," he said. "Me too. Thank you for dinner, and for believing in me, always." He reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her jaw. "Can I kiss you, Tessa?" Her breath caught. "Yes." He leaned across the console slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she did not want to change her mind. She wanted him. Their lips met softly at first, tentative and questioning. Then Sebastian's hand cupped the back of her neck and the kiss deepened, becoming something that made her forget her own name. He tasted like wine and tiramisu and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Tessa felt like the world had shifted on its axis. "I should go inside," she whispered. "You should." Neither of them moved. Sebastian kissed her again, and this time it was slower, sweeter, full of promise. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were dark with want. "Have breakfast with me tomorrow," he said. "Let me make you food for once. You cook, passably. Nothing like your skill level, but I can handle eggs and pancakes without burning down the kitchen." Tessa laughed. "Okay. But I should warn you, I am very judgmental about breakfast. I will take my chances." She floated up to her apartment, touching her lips and replaying the kiss in her mind. Her cat, a gray tabby named Basil, meowed indignantly about the late hour, but she scooped him up and danced around the kitchen. "I kissed him, Basil, and it was perfect." Basil looked unimpressed, but she did not care. For the first time in years, Tessa felt like her life was about more than just work and exhaustion. There was Sebastian, solid and real and interested in her. There was the gala, terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. There was a future that looked different than the grind she had been living. The next morning, she showed up at Sebastian's apartment building at 9, holding a bag of fresh croissants from her favorite bakery. She could not help herself. He buzzed her up to the penthouse, and when she stepped out of the elevator, he was waiting in the doorway of his apartment, barefoot and wearing jeans and a T-shirt that clung to shoulders she had only guessed at beneath his business clothes. "You brought reinforcements," he said, eyeing the pastry bag. "I am a chef. I could not show up empty-handed. That would be blasphemy." His apartment was not what she expected. Yes, it was spacious and beautifully appointed with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But it was also warm, lived in. Books covered every available surface. Architectural drawings and photographs crowded the walls. The kitchen was clearly used, with a coffee maker that had seen serious service, and a well-seasoned cast iron skillet hanging from a rack. "You actually cook here," she said with approval. "I told you I was passable. Low bar, but I try." Sebastian moved around the kitchen with easy competence, pulling out eggs and vegetables for omelets. "Coffee, please." They worked in companionable silence, Sebastian cooking while Tessa set the table and brewed coffee. It felt natural, domestic in a way that should have been strange given how recently they had met, but everything about Sebastian felt right. The way he moved, the quiet concentration on his face as he whisked eggs, the small smile when he caught her watching him. Breakfast was actually good. Not chef level, but solid and made with care. They ate at his dining table with the city spread out below them, talking about plans for the week ahead. Sebastian had meetings about the textile mill project. Tessa had the regular catering orders plus preliminary planning for the gala. Their lives were busy, complicated, but suddenly intertwined in a way that felt inevitable. "I need to tell you something," Sebastian said as they were finishing their coffee. "And I want to be upfront about it because I do not believe in games or hiding things." Tessa's stomach tightened. "Okay. I am a millionaire. You probably figured that out, given the company and this apartment and everything else. But I mean substantial wealth. The kind that changes how people see me, how they interact with me. I have had relationships fail because women were either intimidated by it or only interested in it. I need to know that we are on the same page, that you see me as Sebastian, not as my bank account." She set down her cup and looked him straight in the eye. "I have been delivering your lunch for 8 months without knowing who you were or how much money you had. I agreed to coffee with you because of how you talked about my food and your work, not because of your net worth. Money does not impress me, Sebastian. Passion does. Integrity does. You do." The relief on his face was palpable. "Thank you for saying that, for meaning it. I do mean it. But I appreciate you being honest, and since we are laying cards on the table, I should tell you that I am not wealthy. I am doing okay with the business, but it is tight. I drive a 10-year-old van and sometimes eat cereal for dinner because I have been cooking all day and cannot face making another meal. I am not someone who can drop everything for expensive vacations or fancy events. My life is work, and it will be for a while. I do not care about any of that. I care about you." The words settled over her, simple and powerful. Tessa stood up and walked around the table, and Sebastian rose to meet her. She kissed him with all the emotion flooding through her, gratitude and hope, and the beginning of something that felt like love, even though it was too soon for that word. They spent the rest of Sunday together, lounging around his apartment and talking until their voices were hoarse. Tessa learned that Sebastian's favorite food was his mother's chicken soup, that he had a younger sister who taught high school in Boston, that he donated 30% of his company's profits to affordable housing initiatives. He learned that Tessa had never been out of the country, that she was secretly writing a cookbook that would probably never be published, that she had a weakness for cheesy romantic comedies. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of preparation and stolen moments. Tessa threw herself into planning the gala with a determination that bordered on obsession. She met with Sebastian's event coordinator, Claire, who turned out to be a wealth of knowledge and enthusiastic support. Together they crafted a menu that was elegant but approachable, sophisticated comfort food that would satisfy 200 diverse palates. Appetizers of butternut squash soup shooters, wild mushroom tartlets, and smoked salmon crostini. A choice of main courses: herb-crusted beef tenderloin, pan-seared halibut, or a vegetarian mushroom Wellington. Sides of roasted vegetables, garlic mashed potatoes, and a winter salad. Dessert would be a deconstructed lemon bar, her signature dish reimagined for a formal setting. Sebastian checked in regularly but never micromanaged, trusting her vision and offering support when she needed it. He arranged for industrial kitchen rental, connected her with reputable temp agencies for additional staff, and reviewed her budget to make sure she was not undervaluing herself. Their relationship deepened in the margins of their busy schedules. Quick lunches between meetings, late-night phone calls when they were both too wired to sleep, stolen kisses in the hallway outside conference rooms when she made her daily deliveries. One evening, 3 weeks before the gala, Sebastian showed up at her commercial kitchen space unannounced. Tessa was in the middle of recipe testing, surrounded by multiple iterations of the mushroom Wellington. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, her apron was splattered with pastry and sauce, and she was pretty sure she had flour on her face. "You cannot be here," she said without looking up from the oven. "I am in disaster mode. Too bad. You have been working for 12 hours straight. You need a break. I need to get this right." Sebastian walked into her line of vision, holding a bag from the Thai place down the street. "You need to eat, and I am not leaving until you do." Tessa wanted to argue, but the smell of the food made her stomach growl audibly. She had skipped lunch. Again. With a sigh, she pulled off her apron and followed Sebastian to the small office area in the back. They ate sitting on the floor, backs against the wall, because all the chairs were currently covered in supplies. "This is glamorous," she said around a mouthful of pad thai. "I do not need glamorous, I just need you." He bumped his shoulder against hers. "You are going to make yourself sick if you keep pushing this hard. I am fine. Tessa, I recognize the signs of someone burning out because I have been there multiple times. It does not end well." She put down her food and let her head fall back against the wall. "I am terrified. What if the gala is a disaster? What if I have bitten off more than I can chew and everyone realizes I am a fraud? That is not going to happen. You do not know that. I know you. I know your work ethic and your skill and your heart. This event is going to be incredible, and it is going to launch you into a whole new level of success." He took her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "But none of that matters as much as your health and sanity. If you need to scale back, if you need more help, tell me. Do not sacrifice yourself for this." Tears pricked at her eyes. When was the last time someone had cared about her well-being more than what she could produce? "I do not know how to not go all in. It is the only way I know." "Then let me help you learn balance. You do not have to do everything alone anymore. You have Maya and Derek. You have Claire. You have me." He kissed her temple. "Let us carry some of this weight with you." So she did. It went against every independent instinct she had. But Tessa started delegating more to her assistants, leaning on Claire's expertise, accepting Sebastian's help when he offered it. And slowly, the panic that had been building in her chest began to ease. The gala preparations came together piece by piece. The menu was finalized. The staff was hired and trained. The logistics were mapped out with military precision. 10 days before the event, Tessa finally allowed herself to believe it might actually work. She was at Sebastian's apartment, ostensibly helping him review the seating chart for the dinner, but mostly just enjoying being in his presence. He was on the couch with his laptop, and she was curled up against him, her legs draped over his lap. His free hand absently stroked her ankle, a gesture so casual and intimate it made her heart ache. "I think you should sit at my table during the gala," he said suddenly. Tessa looked up from her phone. "What? My table? I want you next to me." "Sebastian, I am the caterer. I will be working." "You will have staff to handle everything during the dinner service. Sit with me. Let people see you as the chef and artist you are, not just the person who prepared the food. I do not have anything appropriate to wear to a formal gala." "Then let me buy you something." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I am sorry, but no, I am not comfortable with that." Sebastian's expression shifted, understanding replacing insistence. "Okay, but would you let me help you find something?" "No pressure, just as someone who wants to see you comfortable and confident at this event." She considered it. Her pride bristled at the idea of accepting what felt like charity. But this was Sebastian, who had never made her feel like anything less than an equal. And he was right. She did not have formal gala attire, and she could not afford to buy something on her current budget. "If we split the cost," she finally said. "I pay what I can afford, you cover the rest. And it is a loan, not a gift. I will pay you back from the gala fee. Deal." They went shopping 2 days later, hitting a boutique that specialized in evening wear. Tessa tried on a dozen dresses, feeling increasingly self-conscious until she slipped into a deep emerald green gown that somehow made her look elegant and powerful. The neckline was modest, the cut was classic, and the color made her eyes luminous. When she stepped out of the dressing room, Sebastian went very still. "That is the one," he said quietly. "You sure?" "I am sure." He stood and walked over to her, his hands settling on her waist. "You look like a queen, Tessa, powerful and beautiful and completely yourself." She checked the price tag and winced. Even splitting it, this was a stretch. But Sebastian was already pulling out his wallet, and she decided to let herself have this. One night of feeling like she belonged in his world. One night of not having to worry about being the help. The day of the gala arrived with surprisingly little drama. Tessa was at the venue, a restored historic ballroom, by 7 in the morning. Her team arrived shortly after, and they moved through the prep work with practiced efficiency. The industrial kitchen the venue provided was well equipped, and the menu came together beautifully. By 4 in the afternoon, when she finally let herself pause, everything was on track. Claire found her in the kitchen doing a final quality check on the appetizers. "Go get dressed. You need at least an hour to transform from chef to guest, and the doors open at 6. "I am good right here." "Tessa Foster, I am not asking." "Sebastian wants you at his side, and you deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Now go." So she went, changing in a small room the venue had set aside for her. She had brought her dress, makeup, and a pair of heels that she rarely wore. Transforming felt surreal, like putting on a costume. But when she looked in the mirror, she saw someone who looked confident and elegant. Someone who belonged. Sebastian was waiting in the hallway when she emerged. He looked devastating in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his hair styled, every inch the successful millionaire CEO. But his eyes softened when he saw her, and the smile that crossed his face was pure joy. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," he said. "Flattery will get you everywhere." He offered his arm. "Stay with me tonight. I want everyone to know you are mine." "Possessive much?" "When it comes to you, absolutely." The gala was everything Tessa had dreamed and more. 200 guests filled the ballroom, dressed in their finest. The appetizers were a hit, servers circulating with trays that emptied almost immediately. Tessa stood at Sebastian's side, greeting guests and accepting compliments on the food with grace she did not know she possessed. People were genuinely impressed, and more than a few asked for her business card. During dinner, seated at Sebastian's table with his key investors and colleagues, she watched as people tasted her food. The beef tenderloin was perfectly cooked, the halibut delicate and flavorful, the mushroom Wellington rich and satisfying. Conversations paused as people savored each bite, and the murmur of appreciation was the best review she could have asked for. "You did it," Sebastian whispered in her ear between courses. "This is perfection. We did it. I could not have managed this without your support." His hand found hers under the table, fingers intertwining. Partners, partners. After dinner, there were speeches and a charity auction. Sebastian had to network, so Tessa excused herself to check on her team in the kitchen. Everything was running smoothly, the desserts plated and ready to go out. Maya grabbed her in a hug. "Boss, this is unreal. We have already gotten 6 inquiries about future events. People are losing their minds over your food." "Our food," Tessa corrected. "You and Derek were essential to making this happen." When she returned to the ballroom, Sebastian was finishing a conversation with an older couple. He immediately reached for her, pulling her close. "Dance with me." The band was playing something slow and romantic. Sebastian led her onto the dance floor, one hand at her waist, the other cradling her hand against his chest. They swayed together, and the rest of the room seemed to fade away. "8 months ago, I was eating your butternut squash soup in my office, completely unaware that the person who made it would become the most important part of my life," he said quietly. "Funny how fate works. You really think it was fate?" "I do. Some things are meant to be. You showing up when you did, me noticing the cardamom in your lemon bars, all of it. It led us here." Tessa rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in the scent of his cologne. "I am glad you noticed. I am glad you said something. Best decision I ever made." They danced through 3 songs, holding each other close and letting the rest of the world fall away. This moment, right here, was what Tessa had been missing in her relentless pursuit of success. Connection. Love. Someone who saw her not just as a chef or a business owner, but as a woman worth cherishing. The gala wound down around 11. Guests began filtering out, all stopping to compliment the food and thank Sebastian for a wonderful evening. Tessa's team handled the cleanup, insisting she had done enough. So she stood with Sebastian at the entrance, saying goodbyes and accepting business cards and praise until her face hurt from smiling. When the last guest finally left, Sebastian pulled her into a quiet corner and kissed her thoroughly. "You were magnificent tonight. I am so proud of you. I could not have done it without you believing in me. You could have, but I am glad you did not have to." They helped her team load up the van, Sebastian rolling up his tuxedo sleeves and hauling equipment like it was the most natural thing in the world. Meyer and Derek exchanged knowing looks but said nothing, though Derek gave Tessa a subtle thumbs up when Sebastian was not looking. By the time everything was loaded and her assistants headed home, it was past midnight. Tessa was exhausted but exhilarated, running on adrenaline and happiness. Sebastian drove her back to his apartment, neither of them wanting the night to end. "Stay," he said as they rode the elevator up to his penthouse. "I just want to hold you. No pressure, just stay." So she did. They changed out of their formal clothes, Sebastian lending her a T-shirt that hit her mid-thigh. They curled up on his couch with the city lights twinkling below, neither speaking, just existing together in the comfortable silence of 2 people completely at ease with each other. "I am falling in love with you," Sebastian said into the quiet. "I know it has only been a few weeks, but I am falling hard and fast and I needed you to know." Tessa's breath caught. She turned to look at him, finding his gray eyes serious and vulnerable. "I am falling in love with you too. It terrifies me, but it also feels right. Like this is what I have been waiting for without knowing it." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And when they eventually moved to his bedroom, it was with a tenderness that made Tessa's eyes sting. This was not just attraction or convenience. This was real deep, the kind of connection that changed lives. The weeks after the gala were a blur of opportunity and change. Just as Sebastian had predicted, Tessa's business exploded. The contacts she made at the event led to more corporate catering contracts, private party bookings, and even an inquiry from a restaurant group interested in partnering with her. Within a month, she had hired 2 more full-time employees and was looking at commercial kitchen spaces large enough to handle her expanded operation. "This is insane," she said one evening, sprawled on Sebastian's couch reviewing contracts. "A year ago I was struggling to cover rent. Now I am turning down work because I do not have capacity. Success looks good on you." Sebastian was cooking dinner, something he did more often now that they spent most evenings together. "But do not lose yourself in the growth. Remember why you started Comfort Kitchen in the first place. To make food that matters." "Exactly. Do not let it become just another business. Keep the heart in it." It was good advice, the kind of grounding perspective she needed. Tessa made a conscious effort to stay connected to the work, to personally handle the orders for clients she cared about, to ensure that quality never slipped in pursuit of quantity. And Sebastian supported her every step of the way, offering business advice when she needed it, but never pushing, always respecting that this was her dream, her company. Their relationship deepened through the ordinary moments: grocery shopping together, cooking dinner side by side, falling asleep tangled together after long days. Sebastian met Maya and Derek, charming them with his genuine interest in their lives and work. Tessa met Sebastian's sister during a weekend visit, and the 2 women bonded over their shared exasperation with Sebastian's workaholic tendencies. "You are good for him," his sister Sarah said during a rare moment alone. "I have not seen him this happy in years, maybe ever. He is good for me too. He makes me remember there is more to life than work." Then hold on to each other. God knows both of you need it. 3 months after the gala, Sebastian took Tessa back to the small Italian restaurant where they had their first date. Francesca greeted them with her usual warmth, seating them at the same corner table. They ordered the same meals they had that first night, laughing about the symmetry. "I have something to ask you," Sebastian said over dessert. He looked nervous, which was unusual. "And I want you to really think about your answer, not just give me what you think I want to hear." Tessa's heart started hammering. "Okay, move in with me. I know it is fast, and I know you value your independence. But I love you, Tessa. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want us to build a life together, a real partnership. What do you think?" She had been half expecting a proposal, so the request to move in was almost a relief. It felt more measured, more realistic. And yet the question still carried weight. Moving in meant fully committing, merging their lives in a tangible way. "I would need to keep some independence," she said slowly, thinking it through. "I cannot be someone who loses herself in a relationship. I have worked too hard to build my business and my life. I do not want you to lose yourself. I love who you are. This is about adding to our lives, not subtracting from them. And if it does not work out, then we figure it out like adults. But Tessa, I am in this for the long haul. I am not going anywhere." She believed him. Sebastian had proven his commitment 100 times over, through actions more than words. "Okay, yes, I will move in with you." His smile could have powered the entire city. He stood up, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her right there in the middle of the restaurant while Francesca cheered and other diners applauded. It was dramatic and slightly embarrassing and absolutely perfect. Moving in together was an adjustment. Tessa had lived alone for so long that sharing space required conscious effort. But Sebastian was patient and thoughtful, making room in his life and home for her without trying to change who she was. They established routines that worked for both of them. Morning coffee together before their respective days began. Dinner most nights, either cooked at home or eaten at their favorite spots. Weekends reserved for each other when possible, though both understood that work sometimes had to take priority. 6 months into living together, Sebastian's textile mill project finally broke ground. He was ecstatic, and Tessa organized a small celebration dinner with his core team. She cooked the meal herself, pouring love and effort into dishes that represented the different neighborhoods the mill would serve. It was her way of honoring his work, his vision for community building. "This is why I love you," Sebastian said when she explained the concept. "You see the meaning in everything. You make the world better just by being in it. Dramatic much, not dramatic. Honest." A year after they met, Barrett Industries held its annual gala fundraiser. This time, Tessa was not the caterer. She had hired another chef to handle it, trusting her expanded team to execute her vision, while she attended as Sebastian's partner. Wearing another stunning dress, this one a deep sapphire blue, she stood at his side and watched people enjoy food prepared under her company's name but not by her hands. It was strange and liberating, and a sign of how much had changed. "You okay?" Sebastian asked during a quiet moment. "I am great. It is weird not being in the kitchen, but also kind of wonderful. I get to just enjoy the event. And dance with me," he offered his hand. "Always." They danced, and Sebastian held her close, and Tessa felt a swell of emotion so strong it nearly overwhelmed her. This was happiness. Not the fleeting satisfaction of a successful meal or a signed contract, but deep, sustaining joy rooted in love and partnership. "Marry me," Sebastian said against her ear. Tessa pulled back to look at him. "What, marry me?" "I know we have only been together a year, and I know you value your independence, and I do not have a ring right now because I am apparently terrible at planning proposals. But I love you, Tessa Foster. I want to spend my life with you, so marry me, please." Tears streamed down her face. Around them, people were starting to notice, whispers spreading through the ballroom, but Tessa did not care. Let them watch. Let the whole world see. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I will marry you." Sebastian kissed her then, deep and passionate and full of promise. The ballroom erupted in applause, people cheering for a couple most of them did not even know. But it did not matter. In that moment, Tessa and Sebastian were the only two people who existed. The actual proposal with a ring came 2 weeks later, in a much more private setting. Sebastian took her to the rooftop of the textile mill building, which was still under construction but showed the bones of what it would become. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and rose. "I wanted to bring you here because this place represents my dreams becoming reality," he explained. "And you are my biggest dream come true." He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Tessa Foster, will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life making you happy? You already make me happy," she said through tears. "Every single day. So yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. They sat on the rooftop as the sun set, talking about their future. They wanted a small wedding, something intimate with just their closest family and friends. They talked about continuing to build their respective careers while supporting each other. They talked about maybe, someday, having kids. Not right away, but someday when they were ready. "I cannot wait to see what we build together," Sebastian said. "Me neither." The wedding took place 8 months later in a small garden venue outside the city. 50 guests watched as Tessa and Sebastian exchanged vows they had written themselves. Tessa promised to always make him her butternut squash soup when he had bad days. Sebastian promised to always notice the cardamom in her lemon bars. They both promised to build a life full of love, respect, and partnership. The reception was catered by Comfort Kitchen, naturally, though Tessa had nothing to do with the preparation. Meyer and Derek had taken charge, determined that their boss would actually enjoy her wedding day instead of working it. The food was exceptional, a perfect representation of everything Tessa had built. During their first dance, Sebastian pulled her close and whispered, "Thank you for delivering lunch that day. Thank you for taking a chance on coffee with me. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for noticing my food, for seeing me, for loving me." Tessa kissed him softly. "I love you so much. I love you too. Always." 2 years after the wedding, Tessa stood in the kitchen of her newly opened restaurant, Comfort Kitchen, and marveled at how far she had come. What had started as a one-woman catering operation was now a thriving business with a storefront, a full staff, and a waiting list for reservations. The menu changed seasonally, but always featured the dishes that had made her reputation, including, of course, her signature lemon bars with just a hint of cardamom. Sebastian was there for the opening night, seated at a corner table with his sister and a few close friends. He caught Tessa's eye across the room and raised his glass in a toast. She blew him a kiss, then returned her attention to the organized chaos of service. Later that night, after the last customer had left and the staff had gone home, Sebastian helped her clean up. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, wiping down tables and straightening chairs. When everything was done, they stood in the middle of the empty restaurant and Sebastian pulled her into his arms. "You did it," he said. "Everything you dreamed of and more. We did it. I could not have gotten here without you, partners, always." A year later, Tessa found out she was pregnant. The news came as a surprise, though not an unwelcome one. She told Sebastian over dinner at home, simply sliding the positive test across the table between their plates. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "Really, really." He was around the table in an instant, pulling her into his arms and burying his face in her hair. "We are going to be parents. We are going to be parents," she repeated, and the reality of it hit her. A baby. Their baby. The thought was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. The pregnancy was relatively easy, though Tessa had to adjust her work schedule as she got bigger and more tired. The restaurant staff stepped up beautifully, taking on more responsibility and proving that Comfort Kitchen had grown beyond just her. She could delegate, could trust, could step back when necessary. Their daughter was born on a snowy February morning, exactly 2 years after Sebastian had asked Tessa to move in with him. They named her Lily Rose, and she was perfect. Tiny and loud and completely dependent, and both Tessa and Sebastian fell instantly, irrevocably in love. The first few months were exhausting. Tessa had always thought running a business while working 80-hour weeks was hard, but nothing prepared her for the relentless demands of a newborn. Sebastian was incredible, splitting night duties and taking parental leave from Barrett Industries to be home. They figured it out together, learning as they went, making mistakes and laughing through the exhaustion. One night when Lily was 3 months old, Tessa sat in the nursery rocking her daughter to sleep. Sebastian appeared in the doorway, watching them with an expression of such profound love that it took her breath away. "What?" she asked softly. "Just thinking about that day you walked into my conference room with lunch. How I had no idea that the woman delivering food would become my entire world. You and Lily, you are everything." "Come here," Tessa said, and he crossed the room to sit beside them. They stayed like that, the three of them together in the soft glow of the nightlight, and Tessa thought about how unpredictable life was. A year and a half ago, she was just trying to keep her business afloat, working herself to exhaustion and wondering if she would ever have time for a relationship. Now she had a husband who loved her, a daughter who depended on her, a successful business, and a future that looked brighter than anything she could have imagined. "I would deliver that lunch 1,000 times over if it meant ending up here," she whispered. Sebastian kissed her temple. "Best lunch I ever had." 5 years later, Tessa stood in the kitchen of Comfort Kitchen's second location, watching the evening service with satisfaction. Lily was in the office doing homework, surrounded by papers and occasionally wandering out to steal bites of whatever looked good. At 7 years old, she was already showing signs of inheriting her mother's palate and her father's business sense, a combination that promised interesting things for the future. Barrett Industries had completed the textile mill project 2 years ago, and it was everything Sebastian had envisioned. Artists thrived in the studios, community programs filled the common spaces, and the neighborhood had been revitalized without being gentrified. He was working on 3 new projects now, each one honoring history while creating functional modern space. Their life was busy, chaotic, full of juggling work and parenting and the million small demands of everyday existence. But it was also full of love. They still had date nights, still made time for each other despite the craziness. They had learned to balance ambition with presence, success with sanity. One Saturday morning, Tessa woke up to find Sebastian already awake, watching her with that soft expression that still made her heart flutter after all these years. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, reaching over to touch his face. "That day you delivered lunch, how you had been making my food for 8 months and I never knew, how everything changed the moment you walked into that conference room. You really cannot let that go, can you?" "Never. It is my favorite story. The day I realized that the best thing in my life had been right there all along, invisible until suddenly it was not." Tessa rolled over to kiss him properly. "I love you, Sebastian Beckett. I love you, Tessa Beckett." He pulled her closer. "Thank you for saying yes to coffee, to moving in, to marrying me, to building this beautiful, chaotic life together. Thank you for noticing the cardamom in my lemon bars." He laughed, that deep, warm sound she never got tired of hearing. From down the hall came the sound of small feet running, and then Lily burst into their room, demanding pancakes and attention. They got up together, heading to the kitchen to start their Saturday routine. Tessa made pancakes while Sebastian brewed coffee and Lily chattered about her week at school. It was ordinary and perfect, exactly the kind of moment Tessa had dreamed about during those lonely years of building her business. Later that day, after pancakes and a trip to the park and lunch with friends, Tessa found herself back in the original Comfort Kitchen location. She walked through the empty restaurant, remembering how it felt to deliver meals out of the back of her van, how tired and uncertain and determined she had been. That version of herself felt like a different person, someone who had not yet learned that success was sweeter when shared, that ambition could coexist with love, that the best things in life often showed up when you were not looking for them. Sebastian appeared in the doorway, Lily on his shoulders, both of them grinning at her, her family, her everything. "Ready to go home?" Sebastian asked. "Yes," Tessa said, walking over to join them. "Let's go home." And as they walked out together into the golden afternoon light, Tessa thought about fate and timing and the mysterious way lives intersect. 8 months of lunches, unnoticed and unacknowledged, until the day she stepped out from behind the scenes and everything changed. It was not the grandest love story or the most dramatic, but it was theirs. Real and earned and absolutely perfect. That night, after Lily was asleep and they were curled up on the couch together, Sebastian raised the question that had been on his mind for weeks. "What would you think about another baby?" Tessa looked up at him in surprise. "Really, I love our family. I love watching you be a mother, and I think Lily would be an amazing big sister." He touched her face gently. "But only if you want it. I know how much you juggle already." She thought about it, picturing their family expanding. Another child to love, more chaos, more joy. The restaurant was stable enough now that she had good staff and systems in place. She could make it work. "Yes," she said, "let's do it. Let's give Lily a sibling." His smile was radiant. "You are sure?" "I am sure. This life we have built, Sebastian, it is everything I never knew I wanted. Let's keep building it." So they did. Their son was born 14 months later, named James after Sebastian's father. Lily was indeed an amazing big sister, bossy and loving in equal measure. Comfort Kitchen continued to thrive, and Tessa eventually opened a third location. This one focused on teaching cooking classes and community outreach. Sebastian's projects kept growing, each one making a tangible difference in the neighborhoods he touched. 10 years after that first lunch delivery, Tessa and Sebastian sat on the rooftop of the now completed textile mill building, watching the sun set over the city. Their kids were with Sebastian's sister for the weekend, giving them rare time alone. They held hands and watched the sky turn colors, comfortable in the silence that only comes from truly knowing another person. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I had not walked into that conference room?" Tessa asked. "Every day," Sebastian admitted. "And then I stop wondering because it does not matter. We found each other. That is what counts." "We did find each other." She leaned against him. "Or maybe you found me. 8 months of lunches and you were paying attention the whole time." "I was paying attention because your food made me pay attention. Every meal was made with such care, such skill. I started looking forward to lunch in a way I never had before. You were part of my life long before I knew your name." It was romantic and slightly ridiculous and absolutely true. Their love story had not started with a dramatic meeting or love at first sight. It had started with simple, honest work. With food made with care and attention that eventually demanded to be acknowledged. With a man who noticed cardamom in lemon bars and a woman who showed up every day to do her best work, whether anyone was watching or not. "I am glad you noticed," Tessa said softly. "I am glad you showed up." They stayed on the rooftop until the stars came out, talking about everything and nothing, planning future dreams while honoring how far they had come. And when they finally went home to their beautifully chaotic life, they did it together, partners in every sense of the word. The best things, Tessa had learned, were not always loud or obvious. Sometimes they were quiet and consistent, showing up every day until suddenly you could not imagine life without them. Like lunch delivered by a woman who cared about the details. Like a man who paid attention even when he did not have to. Like love that grew from respect and appreciation into something that would last a lifetime. 8 months of lunches had led to forever. And that, Tessa thought as she fell asleep in her husband's arms, was the best recipe of all.